So today on the podcast, I'm fortunate to have a very talented leader, someone who has recently made a significant announcement, but we want to learn more about her as well. I am thrilled to announce and to welcome Councillor Rebecca Bligh, City Councillor of the City of Vancouver. Councillor Bligh, thank you so much for taking the time to be here today.
Thank you, Rachel. I really appreciate the invite, and always nice to see you.
Likewise. And it's always great chatting with you because you seem to have a genuine passion for what you do. And it has not always been easy. It has been quite a year in the Vancouver political space. But before we go there, I always like to hear more about the person behind the pro. We're not just who we are as professionals. So can you tell us a little bit about your childhood, your youth, where you grew up, and how you ended up in the political space?
Okay, yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to share, and truly not everyone knows, but I actually was born in New Zealand and moved to Canada. My dad was originally from Winnipeg, so we were part of the post Expo move to Canada and to BC specifically. Just after in 1988, we came to Canada. We're a family of six. I'm one of four and the only girl in my family. So I have three brothers, my mom and dad. So the six of us came to Canada. I think we had 12 suitcases with us. It was quite an ordeal. And we settled in Vancouver. We come from a big family in New Zealand and everybody still lives there. So there's a lot of sort of emotional ties and a lot of sort of uprooting, I should say, our family. And for that kind of a move with four kids under 12 was pretty significant. And we settled in BC. We settled in the metro region. I went to high school in Surrey, went to Holy Cross High School out in Surrey. And then when I finished high school, we moved into Vancouver and my brother started high school. So it was a good time for that transition. And I have been in Vancouver ever since. So that was 37 years ago. It's a really interesting lived experience that I bring to the conversations we have day to day now, because anybody who's moved from one country to another at any age recognizes the kind of, as I mentioned, unsettling. It can be emotional, missing family, things are different, people sound different, like everything feels very unfamiliar. And there's a certain level of jarring, depending on the age you are, of that sort of massive shift in one's sort of surroundings and stability and foundation and family. And so I think about that often when I'm working and visiting with neighborhood houses or community centers or family places where they're offering that level of support and outreach, particularly to newcomers and families who may feel like they're in a new place without a lot of support around them. So we certainly were able to put those roots down and really build a life here in Canada. And I still speak often to my family in New Zealand, as there's a lot of emotional ties back there, but have really been so grateful for the opportunity to live somewhere else and experience a different way of life, and bring all of that to starting my young family. As a young single mom at 21, which I think a lot of people do know. It's a very unconventional start, but it really is a story that I share because it's where I learned about how important city building is and how important it is to build cities that work for everybody. And so when we're making decisions around housing, childcare, transit, strong local economy, all of those pieces needed to be there and be in place in order for me to be able to be a successful parent and I wasn't right out of the gate successful. It's always a journey, as you would probably imagine. But it gave me the kinds of foundational supports that were needed in order to continue to live and thrive in the city. And of course, those are decisions we make every single day at the council chamber. So you asked, how did all of that sort of early life feed into choosing to run for council? I mean, I was one of three, with three brothers, and I remember growing up and having a real strong-willed parent in my dad, but also my mom, and they're entrepreneurial, always self-employed, and really gave me a sense of my roots as a way to inform how I think about to contribute back to community, and also how I could contribute back to the role of a counselor in city council, and bringing the voice of the lived experience of coming to Canada, being a single mom at 21, and at a stage in my life where my kids were then older. I have a long-term partner, and was able to step out of the private sector and my own personal business and into the role of bringing those lived experiences and those perspectives to decision-making tables like a council chamber. And yeah, that's really the bridge that brought me into the role I have now.
Wow. So, being a young single mom, being a newcomer, uh, definitely elements that can give you perspectives into what a lot of Vancouver residents are experiencing and some of the challenges or needs that they may have as they're, learning to kind of their feet as a new mother or a new Canadian. Leaving your career behind, or potentially, or half so, or whatever it may be, a big decision. So it was really important to you. You really had a kind of a firm belief that that was where you were meant to be.
Yes, I mean, I've always been very community oriented in every stage of life. I like to put my name forward to do things that have me involved in volunteer capacities or in community projects. I was the 9-year-old that was watching the TV and sort of on my own grabbed the phone, the old landline, and saw the World Vision ad pop up and thought, I'm going to do that. And, all of a sudden I'm getting the package delivered and my family's like, where is this coming from? Like, I just like to do things like that. And,
Yeah.
um, it's, I think, inspired by my grandmother, and God rest her soul, was a foster parent for many decades, and worked in family places here in Metro region until she retired at 70. But she just spent her whole life trying to do right by others and contribute back into the community as a way of uh, of seeing herself as somebody who can support and help others. And I think I was just always watched what she did and felt very inspired by her, and maybe have that gene, that she
Yeah.
passed on. So yeah, it's I get a lot of joy, and it really fills me with energy to see, to problem solve and to connect with people and meet them where they're at in community, and understand what their experiences are like, and if there's anything that we can do as a city to improve things and improve their lives and their experiences. I mean, I think that's the role of a type of leadership that's important to bring to cities and communities.
It's interesting that you talk about your grandmother. She sounded like a strong-willed, wonderful woman. And I wanted to ask you, actually, as my next question, about female representation.
Mhm.
So, in the corporate boardroom, as in the political space, I feel as though females are often underrepresented. It's getting better, certainly, but we still have steps to make. Um, do you agree that this is a issue in British Columbia and really everywhere, although improving? And what do you think that a leading professional woman brings to the table that kind of really makes that diversity vital?
Yeah, I think that so first of all, there is a need to continue to advocate for more women in local government. I serve as the president of the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, and I bring that up because it's a national board that represents local governments of every size community across the country. And why that's important is, as a woman in that role right now, I have a unique opportunity to connect with other local leaders, women local leaders, about their experiences in local government. And what I notice is that women are willing to put their name forward. Women often do get elected, but not as often as men, of course. About 30%, 32% of local elected officials are women. And now the new and emerging challenge, particularly with online harassment and aggression, is that there's an over targeting of that type of vitriol and behavior towards women local elected. So what happens is women are willing to run, but they don't run again. And what we want to do is create safe spaces so that women can serve in government for more than one term. Because, of course, there's knowledge building there. There's an ability to have an even greater impact as an incumbent, and not forever, but certainly for a period of time where one term can turn into two or three, and then building on those impacts and those programs and those advocacy opportunities that anyone's working on. So there's just a greater impact when we know we've got women in those positions for as long as they are prepared to serve. And it's a huge sacrifice, right? Women often carry a greater load in terms of domestic responsibilities, but at the same time, we have to recognize that the domestic responsibilities are also incredibly valuable perspectives in work.
Right.
Domestic care, and care is real work, and not something that's sort of discounted as a nice to have, but it's certainly a need to have. So whoever's doing that kind of work in the home, all that comes back to the discussions, the decisions, and conversations that happen in chambers. And this isn't my opinion, but I've read about it, and the research shows that women leaders do bring a really strong sense of empathy. Women leaders oftentimes can take themselves out of their own perspective and look at a particular issue from shared perspectives or others' perspectives, which is important when we think about making choices and determinations on policy that impact real people's lives. And I think too, women tend to bring a greater, or maybe a more long-term vision beyond one's own 4-year or 3-year term, where they can directly impact. So these are some things that I've been hearing about. There's a lot of incredibly smart and well-researched work out there, books written around how women impact urban centers, and that their leadership can really shape the way a city responds to families and the diversity of populations and things like that in a real positive way. So I think for all those reasons, it's important that we continue to strive for gender equity at council tables and at every level of government, in fact.
That's a great point you make about women potentially being a little bit more skilled in the space of perhaps considering other points of views. There's just so much division and so much, so many feeling with, and I've been guilty of this at times, and really had to look at myself and having my heels dug in on an issue or a topic, and having to really kind of evaluate. And I think you're right about that. I think it goes perhaps back to the empathy piece, but also maybe perhaps how young boys and men are brought up, right? How we're socialized and how we're conditioned, and how we have been, I guess, in the past. So those are great points. Maybe I'll grab some books from you and link them below the episode so that
I'm
people
happy to share some of them. Yes. Yeah.
can have a read. It takes a thick skin. Someone asked me if I would ever run. A couple people have asked me if I ever run for any type of political role. Certainly not mayor. Goodness gracious, what a job! Congratulations, Councillor Bligh, but that is a job. Um, but and I'm too sensitive for it. I recognize it. I know kind of my skills, even to get behind this microphone for the first 20 interviews was tough enough for me. So it takes a thick skin. It takes a lot of skills and personality traits, and you have to be the right type of character, personality for that. Over the past year, there have been significant disagreements, just a lot of drama, and surprising moves within City Hall. We have the Park Board controversy. We have, the Integrity Commission, which concerned me personally quite a bit. Around all of these things, Councillor Bligh, what do you feel is the core issue causing this division and this uncertainty that's happening within City Hall in Vancouver?
That's a really good question. I think that it's a complex question, and I would be remiss if I didn't go back to your first point, because I hear about this a lot, that it takes a thick skin to be a politician in this day and age. I like feeling things. I would hate to think that I get to a point where I'm perceived as having a thick skin, and therefore, real emotional challenges don't impact me, because of course,
Mm.
because that's the humanness, and I would
Mm-hmm.
never want to not remember my humanness ahead of anything else, in a role where there's such immense responsibility to serve in the best interest of the most amount of people and not oneself. And so I think, in order to do that, you have to be willing and courageous enough to let the bad days just be bad days,
Yeah.
and let the tough things that happen feel tough, and know that it will pass, and you'll have some good days too, and let those in as well. And it just becomes a daily practice of not holding on to things, not holding on to grievances, not holding on to resentment or anger or those frustrations, but recognize all those feelings are very normal, and they're part of doing big things. And so I think that's the first part. Um, why is it so divisive and a lot of drama? I mean, my philosophy and how I try and do the job is to stay really, really focused on outcomes, and policy. I think that what we see in every level of government, actually everywhere in the world, is a real struggle around power and control. And if that is the motivation, then I think manipulation and coercion and mistrust and inconsistencies and all of those things come after it. And so if we are focused on policies that create good outcomes, and we recognize that it's a bit of a thankless job. There's a lot of misunderstanding in terms of how government runs, and there's a lot of frustration, whether it's traffic or the challenges we face in Vancouver relating to homelessness, or sort of these persistent issues that seem like they should be fixed. And why aren't they fixed? I get that frustration. I also know that these are complex challenges, and every level of government is trying to work together to get to a better place. And what we really need is leaders. We need leaders who can bring a clear sense of pragmatic proposals forward, that are both collaborative but also hopeful. We know that we live in a real complex world, and things are changing very quickly, but we need to hold on to some hope, that we are navigating this world. We're coming out of COVID still, whether people agree with that or not, or have a day-to-day sense of that or not. We truly are, whether it's financial, or just from a, I don't know, it just kind of something sort of severed through COVID in our communities. And so it's about getting back in relationship, getting back into community and connection with each other. I think we have to focus on policies where those kinds of outcomes have the greatest chance of success. And all the other rest of it is just noise. You mentioned park boards, you mentioned taking on issues with the integrity commissioner. Um, there's only so much oxygen in City Hall. There's only so much time to put a focus on the critical issues. Those are not the critical issues that I hear from residents that they care about every single day.
Yeah.
And so, in the absence of focusing on improving and increasing the ability for us to deliver affordable housing within the controls that we have, which are quite a few: zoning and permitting and getting out of the way of development, but also managing development in a way that doesn't displace people. I mean, that in itself is a huge job, and one that's squarely within the jurisdiction of the city. But then it's also working with other levels of government to make sure the right investments coming into our city so that we can get
Yeah.
more complex challenges um, addressed, improved, and hopefully eventually have a better social infrastructure system with provincial and federal supports to take care of the people who are falling through the cracks in society.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It was a big long answer
Yeah.
because it's a really complex question, but I just think if we just focus on what we can do and stay out of the theatrics and the games and the political headlines to appear to be, I think all of that stuff. And quite frankly, I think the public is a bit frustrated by it as well.
I think you're right. I heard somewhere recently, I believe it was a pastor sermon I was listening to actually, and he said something around almost every piece of division, argument, or issue challenge within an individual's life comes from pride or ego, whether or not we recognize it or not in some way or form.
Mm.
Which I thought was interesting. And at first I thought, no, that's not right. But then when I really was kind of digging into thinking about it, it has some merit for consideration anyway. So that was kind of interesting.
It is interesting.
But your answer is there are so many misunderstandings and people want things fixed. You're never going to have everyone agreeing with you, right?
Mhm.
You're always going to have someone who's on one side, someone who's on the other. And it's the way that you seem to have found a very balanced way of managing a very, very vital role of leadership. So kudos to you. That's not an easy thing. And I know leaders, CEOs that cannot do that.
I look, I'm not perfect. It's a goal. It's something I'm always working and striving towards. And I appreciate what you shared about pride or ego. And I think there's different variations and very similar that we all are vulnerable to being guided by something that might be
Mm-hmm.
driven by something like that, pride or ego, a defensiveness, or from just an intense reaction. Um, so again, it comes back to that daily practice of self-awareness and truly checking oneself.
Mm-hmm.
Where is this coming from? Is this about me? Is this about the goal? This is about the bigger picture. Trying to figure that out real time. It's not just for other people. This is the work that I think all of us are called to do, so that we can continue to have an impact, um, a positive impact on the
Mm-hmm.
world, which I think is anything that anyone I talk to is wanting to find that for themselves, and it's a practice in all of us. And I'm by no means perfect by any stretch, but it is a focus in order to um, yeah, stay focused on the goal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
And cannot, yes, not be distracted by those things that can often eat up a lot of our time, but more than that, a lot of our emotional and energy and physical energy,
Yeah,
um,
exactly.
which can be zapped very easily.
Hmm.
Um, so you recently announced, this is not a surprise, everyone is well aware, congratulations, that you are running for the mayor of the city of Vancouver in
Thank you.
next fall's election.
Thank you. Yes, I'm very excited. We announced with a new party, Vote Vancouver.
Yes, with Vote Vancouver. I was not surprised to hear the announcement. I was expecting it and hoping for it. I think that you are a wonderful candidate and absolutely must be in that mix of options because the experience and just many other reasons. Media have asked you why, Councillor Bligh, you plan to run, and I don't want to. You've referenced wanting to bring Vancouver to its full potential, and issues that you have around or concerns that you have around certain things such as the Integrity Commission and things like this. But I wanted to kind of narrow it in a bit, just because media have spoken about it quite a bit. If you had to be incredibly specific, what would be your top 3 reasons for running for the mayor of Vancouver?
Yeah, so I would say that Vancouver is an incredible place with a diversity of folks who call Vancouver home, a diverse economic landscape. We're an interesting city in that sense. We're not just sort of like strictly financial or strictly manufacturing, or we are a real network and of businesses, small businesses, budding businesses, now global brands that were born here in Vancouver. We have this very entrepreneurial spirit in our city, and I, as a single parent, I really felt so grateful that I was able to set a course for my family. And while it wasn't always easy, my housing costs for rent were the same as my child care costs that even 25 years ago were totally outsized from what my earnings were. And so I understand those pieces. But it's really about providing leadership that is relatable to everyday Vancouverites who live in the city, and that there is that sense um, of uh, vision and connection and service. So one of the most important things that I think the city can do is reframe what we do in our city as a service-oriented organization, that we are here to serve the people of the city, that we are not to be run like a business, that we're to be run as a city and an organization that has residents that have assets and that have a responsibility to make sure that all of those pieces that come together are to serve back into the community. So it's whether it's leveraging, as one example, we have a property endowment fund, and we own a number of assets as a city. It was established in the late 70s, and that real estate portfolio essentially is incredibly valuable to our city. How do we leverage that so that we can support all the pieces that matter to our city? So whether it's increasing the availability of affordable below market housing, whether it's increasing affordable art spaces for artists, organizations that contribute into the arts, we have such a unique position. We hold such a unique position to be able to tangibly deliver uh, some level of deepened affordability back into the community where we need it. So I think that's one thing in terms of having that level of vision to pull together what is the role of city, what do we want to see in our city. We love the mountains, we love the ocean. We know that the water and the mountains are such an aesthetic and a connection to nature that Vancouverites deeply value. But I can tell you, if we don't invest in our city to make sure that people can continue to live here, that arts organizations and festivals can continue to thrive here, that local small businesses can afford because their permits are coming fast, because their renovations can be approved. If that doesn't happen very quickly, the mountains and the oceans are not as valuable if we don't have all of those other pieces that make a city. And so I
Good
don't
point.
want, so those, the second, and then I think it's about, I have a profound sense of accountability and responsibility that I was entrusted by the people of Vancouver 7, almost 8 years ago to serve on city council. And I'm not here just to take up space. And so it's about meeting the moment. And the moment is that there is a call for collaborative, experience, competent, calm leadership that can bring people together and that have proven to be able to work intergovernmentally, that spent the time to understand the role that we play as a local government in our region, in our province, and in our country, and then being able to leverage that to get the right solutions back into our city that we need, whether it's building a sustainable city, a resilient city, a kind city, an affordable city. All of those pieces are possible when the leader is able to and willing to put in the work to meet that moment. And so that would be the third reason, is that there's a moment that we are at, and I feel profoundly accountable and responsible to take that next step, as I've been entrusted by the city and the residents here to serve for the past 2 terms.
Thank you for answering. I know that wasn't an easy question. I appreciate your answer. One of the elements that you included, competent, consistent, and calm leadership. That something about that resonated with me. There is an element of the opposite of all three of those that I'm feeling in the air around Metro Vancouver in general, but certainly in Vancouver when it comes to consistency, calm, confident. So I think those are three excellent words to use. I don't know, they resonated with me when you said them. I just thought I'd mention it. But thank you for sharing, because I know it's not easy to put it into what are your top 3 reasons for running for mayor. So thank you. Councillor Bligh, in a recent piece by Dan Famano in the Vancouver Sun, one of his sources, he's the president of Local Public Opinion Research Co., said it's unusual to see so many declared candidates this far out, especially credible candidates like these, who already have some kind of public profile and political experience. And so that's referring to, excuse me, yourself announcing that you're running next year in the fall. Kareem Alam, out here in Surrey, where I am, there's been an announcement as well about those who are running for mayor. And just wondering what your thoughts are on why you think this is that these announcements are being made so far out and by those who have this close and extensive level of experience, so close to the mayor.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I can't really say what I read that piece, and I think it was Mario Conseco that said it.
Yes,
yeah,
correct.
okay, that one. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I can only really speak to my motivation. I guess my motivation has been shared in terms of my reasons running. I think that the mechanism to do that in Vancouver is somewhat unique, although we're seeing more and more of a sort of a party structure being introduced in different municipalities everywhere. It's been legislated by the Alberta government. Actually, the provincial government is a bit of a pilot, and we're seeing they're going through elections now. But we have a party system in Vancouver, and so if my and then of course there was, I became an independent in the fall. The issues matter around that. The issue of building supportive housing in a homelessness crisis is a pretty clear position, and I was willing to take that position, and it lost me the seat in that party. But many of the the values of why I ran remain. And so there was an enormous amount of support behind me, and I'm incredibly humbled and incredibly grateful for that. Then we got into community. We met with people. We hosted community conversations. People showed up. People were willing to support and donate, and so now here we are. Yes, we're a year out, but of course, as I say, we've got a year worth of preparation, of pulling together a great slate of candidates. The energy is behind it for potentially a change. And we're ready to put our name in. I was ready to put my name in and make it very clear. And as you alluded to, you were sort of not surprised and waiting for it. I think that's probably was commonly felt across the city at many people. I'm really happy to finally share the intent to run. And speculating or hypothesizing, opining on Mario's opinion there, I'm the only incumbent that has declared that I'm running for mayor, other than the mayor himself, of course. And so, for now, I see that as sort of a pretty clear picture, and then we'll see what happens as the year progresses and into 2026. But it takes a lot to build a new party, but we've having great success, and so it really is about the timing to do that.
Well, that makes sense. So, a new party, a lot going on. People want to know the direction the city's heading. And I think, like you say, that energy is there, that desire for some vision for the city. One of the issues that's very important to me, as I think is the downtown east side. And I know it's also one that you've voiced and passion for. And I actually understand from a friend of mine who runs a nonprofit, Jenny Conkin of Holway House, that you're going down to Holway House. There's a woman there who's celebrating, I believe it's her 100th birthday.
Yes,
is that correct?
Mrs. C. It's her 100th birthday.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And I know her, and I was thrilled to hear it.
Oh,
So you're
good.
going to be going to celebrate.
Yeah, we're going to have a birthday party I was actually down there today and helped at Alexander House serve Thanksgiving lunch, which is just always something I look forward to. The work of Holway House and Jenny is making a difference in housing that would otherwise just not have that kind of community development and connection. And they're just part of the many network of folks working in the downtown east side, making a tremendous difference to the quality of life for people down there.
For sure. And just for people who are not aware, Mrs. C is turning 100. She had the unfortunate and tragic experience of being attacked in the downtown east side. It was covered by Global News. Aaron MacArthur covered that story. But she is a resilient, strong, kind, wonderful woman. So that's who we're referring to. And Holway House, you can look them up. I'll link them below. But regarding the downtown east side, it's a challenging layered topic. Situation, challenges around that community. That's such a great and beautiful one with wonderful people living in it. I spoke with Guy Felicelli yesterday specifically regarding voluntary treatment. But I wanted to just ask you, I mean, we have a vulnerable population such as elderly residents, such as Mrs. C and others who need to feel safe walking in their community. That's for sure. We also have vulnerable population of those with mental health and substance use challenges who need to be cared for and considered with humanity and empathy and love. And that's just my opinion and thoughts on that. Issues around supportive housing, homelessness. As mayor, what would be a couple of your first priorities for supporting this community, which seems to be just, going here, there, and everywhere and just not anywhere good?
Yeah, I mean, It's a very challenging part of our city. The downtown east side, in terms of its greatest challenges, were not created overnight or one government's term or what have you. We are working with very complex health challenges, generational trauma. We need to recognize there's a role to play for every level of government. There is a role to play for robust healthcare responses, culturally appropriate healthcare responses, um, and we need to start to talk about what the future of the downtown east side could look like in a way that believes that it can be healed. In my 7 years on council, what I think has been missing is a real belief that things can actually be better for everybody. And when we start from that place, we can start, what does it look like? What kind of housing do we have? What kind of changes have we made to zoning to enable more sort of social enterprise, hyper local economic development? There's a lot of empty storefronts. What have we done to really invest in community development? What have we done to create spaces for folks to go? You've got to recognize, not you, but the global you, universal you, we have to recognize that, much of the living conditions in some of the fully supportive SRO buildings is not even just subpar. It's unclean, it's unsafe, and also, but it is where people have a bed, and it is where people call home, but they don't have anything to do. So I think we've got to find healthy, safe spaces for people to go and connect back into community, opportunities for employment, informal economy, meaning not 9 to 5 work. It doesn't fit for a lot of folks, but work where they can connect in, like the work that Mission Possible, that Binners Project, and other social enterprise organizations do, and do so incredibly well down there. I think that we also need to recognize that we are underserved in our city with acute mental health beds. I'm not, what I feel very clear about is that we, as a population of 750,000 people, are deeply, deeply, deeply under-resourced in acute mental health beds. That can provide folks with very specific care that isn't in an emergency room, that doesn't bottleneck beds in St. Paul's emergency or VGH emergency. We need very focused mental health care and response and complex care where people can get stabilized on medication, they can get connected into social services, that we can ensure that they're stabilized in a way that can then help them transition into more options around housing. Folks need to know that they've got a safe place to live. And so we've got to figure out where's the stall out around building more housing faster in the downtown east side that is both supportive but also self-contained, dignified suites. When we talk about supportive housing in our city, it's not about building more SROs or buying hotels. We're talking about wraparound services with dignified suites where people can have their own private bathroom, have their access to their medication, they can have their access to food programs, they can have access to employment, job skills training. It actually exists in many places in our city. People don't know about it because it works so well. But we have those examples. People don't know about it. It's in their communities because it works.
Yeah, you
We
only hear about the negative.
only hear about the negative. So we need to be championing more of those programs and housing without all this divisiveness in community. Again, that's the kind of leadership that I think can bring people together, can unite the city, but can make the biggest difference for people who actually really need it. And those are folks living in the downtown east side. I do have a concern that without a plan to retrofit, rebuild, acquire, and replace the SROs in the downtown east side, we're really not going to see any change for some time. So I am supportive of a community land trust model. That is something that was leveraged in and around Kensington Market in Toronto. It basically created a program, an acquisition program that the federal government could invest directly into, which they did with the City of Toronto. It enabled them to, under an MOU, purchase quite vulnerable but deeply affordable housing and stabilize it and return it back to community. And when community has a sense of control, a community has a sense of ownership in terms of their own social determinants of health, research shows that the outcomes are much greater for the people living in that community. So we need to have a much bigger vision, a much more optimistic vision, and we have to do the work that's required in order relentlessly do the work that's required to bring healing to that community. And it's not going to be done in anybody's 4-year term.
No.
But the incremental improvements, if we stay very focused on some of the core activities that need to happen down there uh, to make the biggest difference, I actually do believe that while downtown Eastside may always remain a low income community, and every major city has low income communities, but it's a beautiful community with beautiful people who have called it home for decades and decades and decades. And I don't see any need to displace anybody in that community that calls it home, but we need to do a lot more to help people who have ended up there because they don't know what other choices they have. And so as you can probably tell, I spent 7 years out in community working with stakeholders. The answers are already there. We don't need more studies. We don't need more roundtables. We actually just really need a lot of political will and convening and trust building in order to bring everyone along together.
And some action.
All action. Everything has to come back to what's the action. Everything.
Yeah.
Enough
I have
talking.
to I have to say when I'm tuning in, sometimes I don't do it as much now that I'm in South Surrey, but into meetings and things, a lot of talking, a lot of talking. And I know conversation, communication, I'm a communicator and I know that it is vital, but I don't know. It seems as though you may be aligned with me on this one, is that maybe it's time to take a little bit from the communications pie and put it into the action pie, piece of the pie.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I think what you said about culturally appropriate care is also really important, given the disproportionate amount of Indigenous peoples who are in the downtown East Side, and that is a huge part of a true authentic reconciliation, in my opinion, as I am an ongoing learner as a non-Indigenous person. But yes, it's a vital one, and one that I think is dividing our city more than many issues. And I think hope, like you say, is vital. Councillor Bligh, what is something about you that very few people know? It can be related to your personality or your leadership style. I don't know, a hobby. I don't know if you collect coins. Something that very few people know about you that you'd like to share as we wrap up.
I collected stamps. Gosh,
Hmm.
as a young kid, no, what is something that I want people to know about me? Gosh, I mean, there's so much that I think it's actually really common when we're in these public roles that there's most stuff people don't know about public figures. So maybe I flip the question and say, and ask your listeners to just come into every interaction with somebody, particularly someone that has a public platform, and assume that they're also working on stuff as well. They're also human as well, that they are doing their best and need the feedback. But let's start from a place where we give everybody the benefit of the doubt, because politics can be a pretty nasty place, but it doesn't have to be. And
Right.
so if we assume even our adversaries in politics that that everyone is actually doing what they believe is right, it still makes a lot of space to challenge those opinions and challenge in disagreements without disrespecting. And so there's a lot that people don't know about me, and I'm an open book and happy to share if anybody was to ask me anything. And I love
What's your
dogs.
favorite TV show? Or do you watch TV?
I love British like crime dramas. That's
Okay.
my like go-to. And I guess the other thing I'd say is cooking is my relaxation. I could
Okay.
just, I've got a busy week coming up. I can spend the Sunday doing a whole bunch of different dishes for my family to know they're set up for the week, but it's actually truly relaxing for me. And I think, and I get, more mind space. And so cooking is a restoration for me. So yeah, there we go.
Amazing. Awesome. Well, thank you. What's the best way for people to reach you if they have questions about your platform, your opinions on issues, they want to give you feedback?
Yeah, I mean, you can reach me at my rebecca.bligh@vancouver.ca. That's my city email. I read 100% of my emails and will respond. And also, I stay off of X as much as possible. I may
Yeah.
update, but I don't really engage a whole lot there for lots of obvious reasons. But my Instagram is wide open, so you can follow along at Bligh Rebecca. And also Vote Vancouver has an Instagram, so check in with us there.
Excellent. Well, it was a pleasure to chat today, Councillor Bligh. Today we had the opportunity to hear from City of Vancouver Councillor Rebecca Bligh, who is running in the next election for Mayor of Vancouver in fall of 2026 with a new party called Vote Vancouver. Congratulations, and thank you so much for taking the time to share with us today, Councillor Bligh. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Rachel. It's been great to be here. Be kind and truly connect. You are listening to Rachel Thexton Connects.